Hey from my studio, I'm Anastasia Mac, and today I'm going to show you how to tighten a stretched canvas that has gotten a little loose. And my method is actually different from what other people out there recommend. So this canvas has gotten a little saggy, which is a common problem, and no one wants saggy. Saggy pants, not so pretty. Saggy canvas, not great either. It actually may be a little difficult to see the issue on video with this canvas being all white, so let me get some paint on it to help you visualize what I'm talking about here. I coat my canvases with a warm base layer anyway, so I'm not ruining anything by doing this. Okay, now you can see a little better. See how loose it is? That's not fun. So first I have some bad news for you. There is no 100% guaranteed method of resolving the problem of tightening a stretched canvas, because canvases are affected by way too many variables, such as temperature, humidity, the climate of where you live, the brand of canvas that you are using, where the canvas was manufactured, little variables in the fabric of the canvas, the gesso that was used to prime the canvas, and if you already have the painting on it, paint itself plays a role in how tight or loose your canvas may become over time. So, for example, the wooden stretcher bars on the back of the canvas are always made of untreated wood. And the reason the wood is untreated is so that no chemicals seep into the canvas and affect your painting. But being untreated, the wood is also susceptible to shrinkage during dry season and expansion because it holds moisture during more humid season. And of course, it is really dependent on geography as well, because if you live in a humid climate, the wood most likely will expand more, and that makes your whole canvas stretcher wider and canvas tighter. And then we have gesso that coats the canvas, and gesso tends to shrink in drier weather as well, but that makes the canvas tighter. So depending on where you live and how your climate is, sometimes during the winter your canvas may shrink and become tighter, or sometimes during the winter your canvas may expand, or it may be affected in some different ways. Some lower quality wood can even bend a little bit, which is unfortunate. So every time you try to do something to tighten your canvas, you will have a certain percentage of success, and sometimes you will have full success, but there is no guaranteed method that will work for everyone all the time. So just keep that in mind. And the method that I use has worked for me for about 15 years now. And even with me, it is not a 100% success, but it works better than everything else that I have tried and everything else that has been recommended out there before. The painting I have behind this loose canvas is half finished, but the stretch on it is very good, which makes it really pleasant for me to work on. And it makes a huge difference in the enjoyment of your painting when the canvas doesn't sag too much as you apply coats of paint to it and push your paintbrush onto the surface of it. The philosophy behind my painting instruction is to focus not just on the painting techniques, but also on the mindset that goes behind painting creation. And I believe in making it as easy as possible and as joyful as possible for yourself to start painting, which also includes surfaces that are pleasant to work on. And that's why I think it's very important to create a system of treating your canvases in such a way that they're not a pain to work on later when you're actually all in the flow of creating your wonderful piece. So let me first quickly tell you about a couple of methods out there that are recommended by other people and why they're such a pain. Method 1 that is used by a lot of artists, but it just hasn't worked for me, is spraying water on the back of your canvas. So spraying water works temporarily. If you get enough water on the back of the canvas, and if you get the entire surface wet, yes, it is going to shrink, and yes, it is going to tighten. But have you ever gotten a pair of jeans out of the laundry and they were pretty tight and hard to fit into, and once you started to wear them, they became loose again and they became wider and you were able to put them on again? This is what happens with canvas. Canvas just dries out, and the wetness of it, which initially made it pretty tight and made it more fun to paint on, eventually goes away because the fabric dries out. So in my experience, the canvas may stay tight for a couple of days if you have gotten the stretcher bars wet. Remember, what happened is they have expanded and they've kept the canvas expanded, and also they made it tight for a few days, but the stretcher bars are going to dry out as well. So the fabric dries out, the stretcher bars dry out, canvas loosens up, and this solution doesn't last. I don't believe it does. For some people it may. So you can try treating your canvas with water. It is something that is super easy, and if you find that it works for you, maybe it's suitable for the climate that you're in. Maybe it's suitable for the brand of canvas that you're using. If it works, then go with it, because this is the easiest thing that you can do to tighten your canvas. I just don't think it lasts. So the second method I love to hate is using these little wooden shims that sometimes come in a package with your stretched canvas, and sometimes you can buy them separately. These little pieces of wood are called canvas keys, and they are designed to be hammered into the back of the canvas in these little gaps where the stretcher bars meet each other. And the way they are designed is they are angled this way, so you are supposed to insert them like so, and like this. And then you basically hammer them in, and by hammering them in, the stretcher bars separate a little bit from one another and create a bit more of a gap, and therefore it stretches your canvas. It's nice in theory, right? In practice, I'm going to demo this only on one canvas corner just to show you how this works, or in my case doesn't work, but these go in easy enough. And I can keep hammering to see how secure they become, but they don't become secure. So at this angle, they're not going in properly, at least into this canvas. Let's try a different angle. Some artists hammer them in like this. And at this angle, they do go in a little bit tighter, but this is not suitable for transporting the painting because they're still not securely nudged in there, and there is no way without maybe use of a glue to actually secure them in there. And it is questionable whether or not they have contributed towards the canvas being more stretched. So the few times that I've used these canvas keys to keep my canvas stretched out, they have fallen out over time because I transport my paintings, I exhibit them at various art festivals. So A, they have fallen out, and B, a lot of times when they actually do work as intended, they make your entire frame a little bit wider, which makes it harder to insert your canvas into a painting frame if you are the type of artist who frames their artwork. I find there are many issues with using these canvas keys, and they've been nothing but a pain. And I don't want to add pain to my painting. And finally, here's the canvas tightening method that has worked for me. I'm going to introduce you to my longtime friend, Liquitex Matte Medium. I use this matte medium for so many purposes, and this is just one of many, many uses of this magical elixir in my studio, is that I put it on the back of my loose canvases. This substance is archival and non-yellowing, so there's no fear of it seeping through to the front of your canvas. It's not going to yellow your painting, but I also coat my canvas with an extra layer of gesso, or as you can see here, I coat it with an extra base coat of paint. So before my painting even starts, my canvas already has 2 coats of something on it. So there is no fear of this medium coming through to the front and affecting my painting. And the substance, the composition of this is very similar to acrylic paint, so even if it mixes with acrylic, it's completely no big deal. And I do believe this will work for oil paintings or canvas prints as well, because it's friendly towards inks and oils and other materials of that type. But of course, you should do testing before you put it on the back of a very expensive piece, if you are coating something other than an acrylic painting. So my process is that I pour the medium to the back of the canvas and spread it around with a large brush. It's just a cheap brush I have from Home Depot. And make sure you coat the back evenly. You can look in the light to keep checking that there are no areas remaining that are uncoated, to give the canvas an even coverage. The difference between matte medium and water is that the canvas fibers will remain pulled together, where water basically evaporates. Matte medium leaves behind this surface that tightens the canvas fibers together. So they're not as likely to separate from one another and stretch out again when the substance dries out. So now that you have coated the back of your canvas has definitely gotten tighter, but you know what? You may have a problem. And the problem is that it may not be easy to see on this one, but you often would end up with wrinkled corners of your canvas and wrinkled sides. And the reason that happens is because you didn't get the matte medium all the way to the edge of your canvas. So what you have to do is you have to get it all the way to the canvas edge. But we have a problem. It's really hard to put this brush underneath the stretcher bar to coat the canvas all the way in. Your brush doesn't like to behave when you squeeze it under the stretcher bar. And for that purpose, I have something different. I have a cheap foam brush. And what I do is I use this foam brush from an art supply store. It's probably like $1 or $2. And I use this foam brush to push the matte medium all the way underneath. And I push it all the way into the corners. And then I keep adding more. And pushing it all the way in there. And now I'm gonna go around the perimeter and complete the rest of my canvas this way. Make sure you work extra hard to get all of your corners and maybe do several passes over the corners, because corners are much more likely to become wrinkled if the coating of the back of the canvas is uneven. In other words, if you're leaving any dry spots on your canvas, it doesn't shrink equally, and that's what creates wrinkles for you. Ta-da! My process is completed now. Let's see how tight it is so far. I mean, I can play drums on this now, huh? So this is how I treat my saggy canvas. It is going to take a couple of hours for the matte medium to dry in the back, and it's probably going to take a day or so for the medium to dry in the gaps and in the corners next to the stretcher bars. And of course, if the stretcher bars got a little wet, give it about a day to dry out. And after a day, you can assess and see if your canvas has retained its tightness or if this method didn't work for you. As the seasons change, as the level of humidity changes, you may find that your canvas gets a little bit more saggy over time. But from my experience, this method tends to hold canvas fibers closer together long term. So give it a try and let me know how yours came out. Once the canvas is fully dry, you can use whatever materials you may be using in the back to sign your painting. Like, I use a Sharpie personally, and Sharpie doesn't seep through to the front of my canvas ever. So once this dries out, if you decide to put a title or put any other information on the back of your canvas, you can easily use a Sharpie or a pencil or whatever it is you typically use on the back of your painting. Well, I hope this video was of help to you. When you try out this method, please jump in the comments and let me know how it worked for you. Did it keep your canvas tight, or did it not work? Did you have any issues with it? I would love to find out. If you find this content useful, don't forget to subscribe. And to see more of my work, please hop on over to social media to check me out on Instagram and Facebook. And for acrylic painting instruction, for expressive painting tutorials, go to my website to see the offerings of art classes. Bye for now!